Before we even start this video, I just want to let you all know why there wasn't any video uploaded yesterday and why there's two today. I have been extremely busy and wasn't able to edit these videos until now, so I'm very sorry for it, but I will let you all know that from now on this entire upcoming week I'm going to be able to make so many new videos, and then there would be no chance of me not uploading for a while. Another thing before we get into this one, there was supposed to be a live stream today, but as I said, I am on a very tight schedule today, so it will have to be delayed for tomorrow, Monday, April 9th at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. That's about it, let's get right into the video. Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're gonna be reviewing Hyderomastgroningem by the band Ruins.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So before anything, I have to give you some context towards this album and this video as a whole. So as you might know, on each album that I review on here, I find it somewhere online, usually on Spotify or YouTube. I listen to it and then I do my review. Now the thing with this album, this one was basically almost non-existent on the web. You can't find it on YouTube. There's only I think 3 songs up, but nothing else from this album, and looking on it online is really freaking difficult, and I couldn't find anywhere that I could download this album or listen to it on any website. So realizing that there is no way out of it, I started searching for places where I could buy a digital copy of this album, and I found a website that compiled various different MP3 download websites that you could pay on and get this album. And I knew this day would come. I knew that there would be an album on this list that I just couldn't find and have to buy, and you know, I was strictly ready for it, and with the donations on the live streams I have been able to garner up some money so I can do that without any expenses on my own personal expenses. So I buckled my belt and went online into one of these websites, and of course I had to register if I wanted to download and pay for this album, so I registered, and then I noticed something interesting. Apparently whenever you register to a website like this, you get a minute small amount of balance into your account. It's something that could potentially buy you 2 songs for free. So of course, understanding that this would be a tedious process of finding all these websites and creating various accounts, I just decided to pay for an album once, and it was a small fee and I knew that I could afford it. No, I'm just joking. I created 7 different accounts on various websites and I downloaded this entire album without paying a single penny because they were so generous in giving me some balance whenever I registered to each website. And I took the files I downloaded, put them into some softwares, edited it all down to make it into one cohesive album, and voila, I had Hyderomastgroningem on my computer. So honestly, if any of you want to listen to this album and can't, just write it down in the comments, I'll send you a link. No, it's fine. And the reason I'm saying this is because this album is strictly copyrighted on YouTube, and I'm honestly very much afraid of making some favorite bits because I know that if this video gets detected, it will be flagged and potentially blocked for you guys to not see it. So hopefully I'll do the favorite bits like really short, and you honestly don't really need more than that, and hopefully it will pass. But anyway, here are some of my favorite bits from this peculiar album. So how much random is too random? This might actually be the leading question looking into this album, but I'm jumping myself. Firstly, let's talk about who are Ruins. So the band Ruins was founded back in 1985 by the drummer and vocalist Yoshida Tetsuya. Now, as you might hear, this name is Japanese because this is a Japanese band. Now, as the legend goes, Tetsuya basically wanted to create a power trio, but seeing as the guitarist failed to show up, he was left with himself and a bassist, so he opted to create create a power duo comprising only of himself as a drummer and vocalist, and with a bassist as a bassist and vocalist. And I don't mean to say that they were like this power duo but they still had, you know, other contributors on their albums. No, everything heard on this album is performed and made by only two people together, and honestly it's pretty quite impressive. Now, in their years of activeness there have been multiple bassists on this band, while Tatsuya stayed as the leading founder member and as the drummer for the band. And today the album we're looking at is the second incarnation of the band playing together, with Tatsuya on the drums and Ryuji Masuda on the bass. Now, as I understand it, these guys have dabbled in many different forms of music and making sonic experiments, and this one could mostly be described as ultra zool or very hard thrashy experimental metal fusion. I don't believe I've ever had such a long descriptor for an album, but honestly I cannot seem to find any way to describe this album appropriately. I would just say that this album is very over the top in so many ways, in so many fields and ideas. It just experiments and it tries new things, and everything is so bombastic and so hard to listen to sometimes and quite overwhelming. And the way that they managed to get this sound is of course using various instruments on percussion, and of course having a lot of filters on the bass, and mostly playing the bass as if it was a guitar most of the time and not as a rhythm instrument. And these things combined with a myriad of wacky ideas create a very rich sound for just two people. And the music of Ruins on Hyderomastgroningem is really quite impressive. It is much more wackier than any of Frank Zappa that I ever heard, and it is much more intense than any Magma I've ever heard, and honestly I was quite impressed by it, although it was pretty overwhelming. I think that the thing that really struck me the most was the sheer chemistry between the two players. They played really tight music on here, like extremely tight music on here, and they did so masterfully, and I cannot shy from saying that this was quite an impressive feat. And this album is very varied in the song lengths and the song titles and the song ideas and the way that they sound. There are some songs on here which end before they even started, being so short, and there are some songs that almost last up to 10 minutes. And amongst the 20 songs found on this album, there is one that I found myself liking more than the rest, and it's of course my favorite, and it's called Pig Brag Crack. That's really a tongue twister, that's really hard to say. And this track in particular I believe to be very much like hard rock, hard prog sort of song. It isn't zooly in many ways, if you might say that. I like the main riff that it has, and honestly it's quite fun to listen to. I would say that it's a pretty nice song to listen to, and it was the one most memorable to me from this entire shenanigan of an album. Now, I will say about this album, as I hinted before, it's really a test of one's grit. It's really hard to listen to this entire album in one sitting. It's like really tiring, it's so overwhelming, it's really pretty difficult. But I myself prefer listening to an album from start to finish in one go because I want to experience it as a whole, as one entire unit, and thus I gave it a listen. And honestly, towards the end of this album I was starting to lose my mind, but I knew that I had to last on. And you know, that's pretty bad, because I know that the music at the end of this album wasn't strictly bad. It's just that I was so filled up with everything that was going on before it that it was really hard for me to appreciate what came afterwards. And you know, I see a lot of people praising this album for many various reasons, and I don't know the other works by Ruins, but I can definitely tell you that this one feels special in many different ways. But one leading factor that is probably why it is so popular nowadays is because the Rolling Stones magazine actually rated this as being the 49th place out of the 50 greatest prog albums of all time. And you know, I don't know if I would agree with this. I don't think this album is quite great, but as I said, I listened to it only once, and honestly it will take time to grow on me. But what I am glad is to see the Rolling Stones actually finding these obscure albums and rating them appropriately alongside all the other greats. So yeah, this is an odd album, and again, if you want to listen to it and you can't seem to find it online, you can definitely contact me and I'll provide you with the link to its download. So this cover actually seemed kind of odd to me at first glance. I didn't really know what I was looking at, and I didn't exactly understand why there were two olive brownish green bars on the sides. Like, I didn't really get it, but apparently looking into the other albums by Ruins, I saw that these bars were a recurring motive on most of their albums. Well, not most, but most of their albums in that specific era. And honestly, as a personal opinion, I don't really have a lot to say about this cover, but what I will say is it's very non-suggestive for the music found on here. I would expect something more like the Pike series album covers that appear on Buckethead's discography for an album like this, but not something that emanates, you know, relative calmness. I wouldn't say that this album cover is calm, but it is not generating anything that would lead me to believe it is a cover for an absurd album with so many various things on it. But as I said, I am none the wiser. I don't know what a better cover would really actually look like, but I'm just here giving my own personal opinion on the graphics, and honestly, I would say it isn't as bad as it could have been. So, despite the Rolling Stones giving this one a prestigious title, I would say that to me at least this album receives a 6 out of 10. But I will also add that this one I will have to come back to sometimes in the future and listen to it again, because it feels to me as I grow older and metamorphosize into something else, so will the perception of this album to me change and shift in many different ways, and hopefully for the better. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're gonna be listening to Hamburger Concerto by Focus. I also want to thank my lovely supporter over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Walnum. You are the best, and if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the links down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.